the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor to Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
With Chapter 551 of the Texas Government Code as amended known as the Texas Open Meetings Act. Any members of the public who wish to speak shall have 5 minutes. We will all be speaking in this next section, so all right, we don't have any members of the public who are going to speak this morning, so we'll go to item number 1, which is centralized dispatch. Just as a little background, I don't know how long ago, but a while ago, the city had come to us to talk about doing a centralized dispatch. And so the discussion progressed to hopefully include all of the county, that we could make things work a little better, a little cheaper hopefully, and more efficient was the main thing. So as far as the centralized dispatch, we have been working on getting a building built, and we have just gotten the plans for that. We're waiting, well that's actually in the next, well no. We are having Hot Cog to look at the building to be sure that all of the specs work fine for them and for all of their equipment, 911 equipment. So we wanted to talk this morning about one area, which is the CAD issue, communications with the entire county. Would any of y'all like to talk about that a little bit, about the process or what we're looking at?
I guess the main thing was to try to get everybody on a CAD system where dispatch can see each city and each law enforcement officer, first responders, and such. Right now, I take it that Fairfield and TIG are both on eForce, is that right? And Wortham is on a different type of system. And so there is a representative with eForce here today. One of the things we talked about at the last court was, I guess, cases and information being sent from office to office, but I think that we've kind of talked it out in the 2 main offices in the county courthouse that need to stay on the same page are financial. So the auditor's office, the treasurer's office can stay within that data and move on to something else, and it gives the rest of the offices a chance to get away from that data. That's the way to say it, and go with something else. So the rep with eForce today is going to tell us what that communication, as far as the police department or sheriff department sending a file or something to the DA's office, and how that process works and stuff like that.
I know it's going to be a lot of change, but for the county, we want to look at that. We want to look at the county changing to a different program. That data cannot work with the CAD systems that we have. Isn't that correct? Isn't that what we decided?
Yeah, it will not integrate with the eForce or with what Wortham has.
Yeah. So it may be some changes on everybody else's part, but it's going to be changes on the county's part too. So we're hoping that we can all work together and find something that will everyone will I won't say be happy with, but everybody will work with.
It's something that'll make it safer for the county. For all you guys who are out there in the field, something that'll make it safer and better for all of us. I mean that's the whole thing I'm looking at, is us all getting on the same page and making it safe for y'all, because y'all are the ones out there on the lines doing things, and you got to have communications, you know.
Leon, Limestone County has gone to a central dispatch, and the had visited with some of the dispatchers, and they said it really was working well for them, much easier.
And me personally, I don't know a lot about it, but I don't, we'll listen to one presentation. If somebody knows there's somebody else better, that something else works better, then I'm open for suggestions. I think we all are. We want what's
I
best
think
for
we are
Freetown.
going to have another presentation. We're trying to get set up from another company. And yes, input is what we're looking for today. I don't really understand the whole system either. I'm just in favor of trying to make it, as he said, something that will work better and easier for the county.
Is there anybody from the public that wants to say anything before he starts the presentation? And I think this is going to be a snippet of what their software does, and then he has a full-blown presentation that we'll roll the TV in, but we'll adjourn court before we go into that part of it.
I think we have good representation this morning. I appreciate all of you coming. I know some of you, there have been a couple of the, maybe the schools that were kind of questioning if that would help them, but I'm glad that y'all have come to learn a little bit of what we're learning today and see if it is something that will benefit y'all. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge. Thank you, Commissioner Lane, for putting this together. So my name is Ken Clark, and I'm the VP of Sales with E4 Software. And you guys are a pretty intimidating group. I don't deal with groups this big very often, but a little bit about E4 first. E4 Software has been around since 2003, and we took over a company called Force Technologies. We rewrote everything we did into browser-based technology. So at the time, everyone said we were kind of stupid and that would never work. Luckily, our CEO, our two founders were right, and browser-based was the way things were going. So there are hundreds, literally, of vendors out there that do what we do. Maybe not hundreds that can do a centralized dispatch, but in general that handle law enforcement software. So we specialize in CAD, computer-aided dispatch, records management software, jail software, mobile software. That's mainly where we focus. And we have around 400 customers around the country. Around 130 of those are in Texas. So Texas is our biggest state. That's important for you to know because Texas does things differently than everybody else. Every state does things differently than every other state. So we know what we're doing in Texas. We're comfortable in Texas. We have a huge customer base there, which means when something changes in Texas, we have to change our software as well. The thing that eForce brings to the table for this project, I mean, in general, I'll say the same thing that any other vendor is going to come in here and tell you. It's a good product, and we do a good job of serving our people, our clients. But in general, what we bring to the table that others don't in this situation is we have obviously two agencies in TIG and Fairfield that use our software already and can speak to the product and the customer service. And the one thing because of that, data sharing becomes a big thing. Okay, so in using and centralizing a dispatch, I think most of you understand, obviously it allows at one center for the dispatch center to see what's going on inside the entire county. But not just see what's going on, but be able to share data. So right now, TIG and Fairfield have the ability, I don't know if they do it all the time, I haven't asked, but it's up to every agency to have the ability to share data with one another. So with a click of a button, I could say, TIG PD wants to share data with Fairfield PD. And that means when I search for John Smith, I can not only see what John Smith has been involved with at my agency, but I can also see what he's been involved with here. So in centralizing everyone and getting everyone on the same page, dispatch is doing the same thing. So when someone calls in and says, hey, I've got this going on at my location, dispatcher puts that information into our CAD system, and they're going to immediately see if this person has a warrant, if they're a sex offender, if they've had multiple citations or something like that in different locations, they will immediately see that. If they have different alerts that are put on, those alerts could be that they are, I mean, this was big for a few months when COVID was big, where our departments would actually go in and put COVID positive people into the system, so if they got a call from there, they could tell their officers, hey, be careful. But there's all kinds of alerts that can be put into the system, and that data is shared. The ability to plot on a map every unit. And these are all options, and we'll go over those. We didn't want to bore every single one of you with all the details of what the system does, because a lot of it wouldn't make sense to some of you. But the ability to see all these units and where they are, determine who could be the quickest to respond, and things like that would also be a huge benefit. Is it okay if I open it up for questions too?
Sure.
That's the main benefit of what eForce brings to the table. Is one, we're already here, and our customers like us. One, and I think the Commissioner may have already reached out to Sheriff Ellis down in Leon County. We've got not only would you be able to share data with the agencies in this area, but any other eForce customer in the area. And there are a few to where you could share data. And if Sheriff Ellis has a bad guy down there and he makes his way up here, you're going to see that when you run a search. So getting a vendor that has a presence, a footprint here in Texas is a big deal for a few reasons. The sharing of data, and two, like I said, Texas does things differently. Many of you will remember, the law enforcement guys certainly know, many of you will remember the Sandra Bland Act and the racial profiling stuff that happens within Texas. Those are things that a vendor such as eForce stays on top of to make sure that those statistics are able to be reported in an easy and regular and correct manner. Many of you may not be familiar with the term NIBRS, National Incident-Based Reporting. That's something that all the law enforcement agencies need to report to the state in order to be compliant and receive federal funding and things like that. We make that process very easy. That's one of those tedious things I'll go into in my demo afterwards that the law enforcement guys will really like. So our ability to pass and share and pull data out. One other cool thing about our system that our customers really like, we've got what we call an ad hoc report writing system. So in a lot of the software vendors out there, they will create reports that a chief or even a judge or anyone that has access to the software could go in and pull statistical data. How many arrests did we have? What was the charge? Who arrested them? Where were they arrested? They'll build these reports for you. Well, as you can imagine, we could never build enough reports to satisfy every need of every agency, of every commissioner, every city councilman of what they want to see. So we have an ad hoc report writer which allows you to go in and build any report that you want and have those reports automatically generated and emailed out to specific people on specific dates and times. So in a combined dispatch scenario, you could go in as a dispatch center and create reports that go out to every agency every day, every week, that shows here's every call that we took for you. And that shows up to the chief or whoever wants to get that report. Maybe it goes out to the city council of each city on a regular basis every third Thursday of the month or something like that. So your ability to pull data out and see what's going on within your departments will be greatly increased as well. Are any of y'all coming up with any questions that you want to hit me with? Yeah, sure.
The local agencies that you're with, are you running tablets or true MDTs out of?
Good question. So our software is really agnostic when it comes to the device that you're using, another benefit that eForce brings. So I don't know what our agencies are doing, but I know what they can do, and that's whatever they want. So you could use a tablet, you could use a laptop, technically you could even use a phone. Now to write a report from a phone like this is not going to be incredibly a great user experience just based on the size. But you technically could search for what you need to. Our mobile, which would interest if we have some fire departments in here, our mobile can be used from a tablet or from a phone. So technically when a call goes out, I could get an alert right here on my phone. I could click on it, I could see all the details of what's going on, and I could put myself in route, arrived, clear myself, just from the use of a phone. So a lot of times our fire and EMS will have a tablet that sits in the apparatus. A lot of our law enforcement guys will carry a phone, or they'll have a laptop in their car that they use. But again, one of the benefits that we bring to the table, again, we made a little bit of a risk a few years ago, and we said, we think this phone and tablet thing is the way things are going. We first rotated iOS, and now we do Android as well. So you can kind of use just really whatever you want. And that goes for writing citations. If you're an agency that's big in writing citations, you can do that from a phone or a tablet as well, and then just print off onto a Bluetooth printer, a little printer that you've got in the car. Good question. Did that answer?
Yes, sir. I guess the question being, what's the cost difference? I mean, you may not know the numbers right off here. If you're providing tablets to each car versus the actual terminal in each car.
You're right. I don't know the answer because we don't provide the hardware. We provide the software and we allow our customers to choose what they want. So we'll make some recommendations. If you're using an iPad or an iPhone, we don't really care. It is what it is and they're all going to work. If you've got a specific Android device that's not really that common, then we're probably going to say, hey, send that to us, let's test it, we may need to make some tweaks to it for you. Laptops, you know, it really doesn't matter. So we don't sell the hardware, we are only offering the software side of it, of course the support. When you purchase the software, we are going to come in and well, the first thing we do is work with the dispatch center to set up the software. So who are all the agencies, what are all the units we need to put in there, what are all the call types, what type of alerts do we want popping up, those are some of the details we'll discuss in our next meeting. And then once that's all set up, we will come here and we will spend a few days with the dispatchers, training them, and we will be here live when they go live with the software. I mentioned that we're out in northern Utah. I think I mentioned, I don't know if I mentioned, but our trainer, our lead trainer, actually lives in Houston County. No, she's in Trinity County, right next to Houston County. We don't really need our trainers or our support people on site ever, but that is one added little bonus, is our lead trainer that knows the software better than anyone in our company is only a couple of hours away from you and could be here if she needed to. Did that answer your full question?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Judge Grant, Commissioner. I'm James Tice with Fairfield City Council. I got a question for you. The workload with this system, is it going to require any additional personnel sitting at the phone, dispatching to run y'all system and do all the data entry in that? Or is that going to, the same dispatcher can answer the phone, dispatch, and do the data entry and everything all in one person? And if that's the case, how many people will we need for a 24-hour shift, 7 days a week, to run this system?
That's a great question, and I don't necessarily know the answer to it yet. I don't know everything that's going to be involved, but yes, one person could do it if the workload is low enough, right? It's going to depend on how many calls are coming in, but it's not that uncommon that we could have a combined dispatch center. It would be what we would consider to be a slower dispatch center, but that one person could take the calls, do the dispatching, and do everything that needs to be done. I'm yet to dive in, and you guys might know better if there would need to be 2 dispatchers on duty or just 1. I doubt there would ever need to be more than 2. My guess is it would normally be a 1 dispatcher situation where 2 could come in if the call is not.
So during high volume, you could probably have 2 there. Okay.
You don't have to have 2 there.
Well, I guess too, the question would be, we're not gonna have to get an additional dispatcher just because we're using this system.
Right. Yeah.
This system's gonna make it simpler,
Yes.
because the
Yes.
deputies will be inputting their stuff on their end, that the dispatchers won't have to. And, of course, the dispatchers are already doing all of this already anyway, it's one of the problems. So, as far as the county's concerned, I think it's gonna be much easier, but we're definitely gonna have 2 or 3 dispatchers, I can tell you that. And I think the other agencies are gonna agree.
My next question is, how many of the city dispatchers are y'all going to employ when changing over the system?
Well, I think when we actually get down to the number that we'll need, hopefully all of them will have a place if they want to come.
Thank you. Thank you.
How many do y'all have right now?
How many do y'all have? 4? Yeah, we have 8.
We only have 5.
Well, yeah, so 8 positions,
Well, we
but
have
there's only
positions
5.
for 8 maybe or
Yeah.
something. So we have 5.
So that's,
And it'll probably, considering the rotations, as you say about,
I would say that what we've already talked about between, Shipley said 12 last time, and I was talking to Leonard about that schedule that we were going over, and he was saying a minimum of 10. So we're in
Make sure
that.
just make sure in that schedule, you're putting in their holidays and their days off and all that, 'cause, yeah, you're gonna need it for 12-hour shifts.
In general, kind of a rule that I use, if you've got 2 dispatchers on duty at one time, which it's sounding like that may be the route you guys would go, you'd need at least 10 to 12 dispatchers employed to cover those shifts. That's what I see.
Yes, my concern was, the employment of our dispatchers, yeah, if they can.
That's what we had discussed was,
Now,
but,
the funding for this, is it gonna be every city in the county gonna contribute? Is this gonna be the county and Fairfield contributing?
well, it will depend on the cities. Do we have anybody from, the mayor or the city of Fairfield? I didn't think we did, do we?
Fairfield, this is,
I'm sorry, Wortham.
oh,
Wortham, I was looking at Kelly.
mayor's not here.
Okay, we're gonna have to talk to them individually, and, Teague.
I don't think they're here either.
All right. We will have to talk to them individually. We were hoping they would be here today to discuss kind of a little bit of this, but depending on how many people, how many entities decide to become a part of the dispatch, combined dispatch. Now, if they don't, then they will do their own, just like y'all do your own now.
I just, as far as I'm concerned, we want to be a part of the, contribute to the dispatch call center, so I don't think there was, we're coming up on a budget, so I'm pretty sure the money's there to help fund this thing.
Yes.
But as far as I'm concerned,
Yes, and we had talked before with the mayor and the city administrator on looking at the budget and seeing how would be the best way to allocate those expenses as far as whether it was on number of calls or some other basis. So that's going to be a work in progress for right now. But I know that Fairfield is interested in being a part of central dispatch.
Thank you. No further questions.
I did talk to the mayor and told him about the meeting. He said y'all would be here, but y'all were still interested in doing it. Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Are y'all able to, are the officers able to run license plates and driver's license checks from their mobile terminals in the car?
Yeah, they can, as long as we're working right now with the state to try and get it to where we could do a hosted solution that way. So E4 software is browser-based, but that does not mean that we are necessarily cloud-based or that we host it for you. Our customers that run their 27s and 28s, they do that, they're locally installed. So we would install on a server somewhere at the county level, and you can run your queries that way. If you wanted us to host it for you to where it was cloud-based, then we're not currently doing that.
The system that you use, does it provide that?
Yes. We scan driver's license in our cars, run 28s through our system, or we don't have to communicate with dispatch other than checking out on the traffic stop. And if we need additional assistance, then we would, so it cuts down on regular traffic, so.
Is y'all's cloud-based right now?
Yes.
So, trying to see how far to get into this, but the vendor that they currently use runs their software through various hubs throughout the state. One of those hubs, one of those hubs is Chief Hightower up in Moore County. That was one of those hubs. That county recently dropped that vendor and is now using eForce exclusively. And when I say we're working with the state, we're working with Moore County, we're working with the state through Moore County to now do the same thing that their vendor was doing that way. And we're finding working with the state is fun and it takes a little bit of time. But we're in the process of doing that. So the most honest and direct answer I can give you is, yeah, you can do that right now today if we install on your local server. If we want to go to a hosted solution, then we've got some hoops that we need to jump through.
So when you say on the local server, would the officer still have the ability to scan or type in the information from their terminal and it go through the local terminal where we wouldn't have to communicate with dispatch?
Yes, yeah, we can still build that. We have customers that are doing that. That the caveat is, a lot of people love the fact that we can host it for them and they don't have to have a server somewhere. Right now, that's not possible if you're gonna run it twice.
And I would assume that an additional server at the county level would be an additional cost.
Yes, yeah, if you don't already have a server, then you could be looking at a cost of, you know, everybody quotes, I've seen people spend $50,000 on a server. I think it's absurd. For $10,000, you could get a server that you need if you don't already have one, or less.
Once the dispatch center's up and running, will all the fire departments still be able to use analog handhelds, or will it one day have to go digital, or have that capability?
The radios?
Yeah.
So I wouldn't know what you want to do with your radios. However, you will have the ability from, you know, a phone or a tablet or a laptop to get alert notifications when a call comes through. You could get a text this way.
Well, we already do that, but most of our radios are analog. I think some of the sheriff's departments have digital. I just wondered if the dispatch center, if it's going to have the capability to go digital one day for fire departments too, or?
Yeah, that would be outside of our expertise, what we want to do with radios.
And that's really just changing the radios out, am I correct?
Yes.
Or anything that's analog?
No, you still have one channel that's digital that we got the grant for. So everything else would still be analog unless you change all those channels to digital as well.
Well, I think if you went with P25 capable, if I understand it, and I may not have the full, but if you went P25 capable, it can do both, analog and digital.
Well, yes, it would scan. It would scan all the channels.
But I think we have numerous radios
That'd be analog.
that are not.
I have another question, law enforcement based. Penal code. So is y'all's system, so if officers are typing a report or looking up criminal charging language and stuff in the penal code, is y'all's system set up more NIBRS based, or is it more
Are we basing it on classifications or on arrest codes?
Yes, and the reason I say that is because most agencies in Texas, they're hammered into the penal code. Penal code does not transition perfectly into NIBRS.
Yeah.
So you have to retrain the thought process of officers on the street. So
yeah, I can show you this when we get in and dive into the software. If I'm being honest, I would say that our software is geared more towards the classification NIBRS side of things. However, there are some, what even some of our customers forget or don't understand, we train this, but you know, at times they forget, is you can actually go in and tie your penal codes to your classifications as well. So when an officer goes in and types in your penal code, it will actually say, okay, based on your penal code, here are your 3 options or your 2 options of NIBRS classifications that you can use. So it's technically based on both. We are going to put your penal codes in there for you. We also allow you to go in and update those when you see fit. But technically it's both. It's the NIBRS that's running what's required in your report. But that penal code, when you select whichever penal code you want, it will narrow down and tell you what NIBRS code to use. And this isn't making sense to a few of you, I'm sure, but interestingly enough, there's no document out there that we could ever get our hands on that says this penal code goes with this NIBRS classification.
well, the reason I ask that is because the system that I'm using right now, it's just the opposite. We type it in, penal code is gonna pop up the Texas penal code first, and then when we get to our NIBRS designation, it gives you the options to narrow that down. It's just the opposite.
Yeah, and ours can work the same way. If you type in the penal code first, it will narrow it down for you. I would say one of the biggest differences that people like, you know, this is coming from the eForce vendor, right? With our system compared to what you're using is how our NIBRS works. because it really narrows down and shows the officer exactly what's required. It also allows multiple people to access any report at any given time and write a supplemental report or things like that. It's got a full evidence module. It's really geared towards the report writing. What you'll find when you look at other vendors, some of them start out as a mobile solution, and then they build their RMS or their CAD based on that. Some of them, you know, for example, I think maybe what you're using now at the county level started kind of on a court side, and they build out their law enforcement side after that. We started law enforcement, RMS and CAD was kind of our main thing, and then along, and I guess I would throw jail on top of that. Then mobile kind of came from there, and so that's kind of our baby, is report writing, NIBRs, dispatching, and like I said, I even throw jail into that. And we do a good job with mobile, but mobile did come later for us. And so it wasn't our initial focus, where, you know, some of these other vendors started out as mobile and then they tried to make their mobile turn into an RMS, which caused a few issues.
Ken, one thing that you haven't touched on is the fact that you also provide for the school and reporting for the school.
Yeah, thank you. We've done a lot of work over the last few years with independent school districts. I haven't got the number, I should have it, but I'll bet we're somewhere around 35 independent school districts now that use our software. Klein ISD, a larger one in the Houston area, is the latest. They just signed a contract last week. But we do a great job with independent school districts. Why? I think our price has been right. I think it's very easy to pull data out for the school districts where they can separate it into grids. You know, for example, they've got a high school grid and a junior high grid and an elementary grid, and pulling statistical data, charts and graphs showing what's going on in your department. I think our ISDs fall in love with. But yeah, we've done a lot of work with ISDs. Thanks for pointing that out, Chief. And yeah, hopefully you guys are able to stick around and see the software in depth as we go. But we would love for everyone to be involved and everyone sharing data.
Can you touch on the fire EMS side a little more than?
Yeah, so the CAD is built as a multi-jurisdictional CAD. It is built, and certainly we have customers that are only dispatching for themselves. And we specialize really in groups this size. We're not out looking for those huge agencies that are I mean, we have a few state agencies. We have one in Utah that dispatches for about 30 agencies. We've got the country of Trinidad and Tobago. It's a small country, but it's a country, island out there that uses our CAD product exclusively. So we can handle that. Your size agency is really what we're looking for, but yeah, it's built to be multidisciplinary dispatch. So the dispatchers can easily see what units from each agency are currently on duty. They can see those on a map. One of the cool things about our CAD that separates us a little bit, I think there are plenty of other vendors out there that do this, but you'll have the ability to set it up so that each agency gets their own case number, right? You'll have one call number, and then when you go to assign a case number, this fire department and this fire department, this fire department, the sheriff's office and this police department can all get a different set of case numbers, which may not sound like a big deal to some of you, but for the agency, that's a big deal. So we can assign different case numbers. We also have the ability to interface to your different fire reporting systems. So ESO is a common one that's being used. That's something when we get into the price and getting an official quote that we'll take into consideration. But that's very common, is when that call, and this is something I actually haven't talked about with law enforcement, but the cool thing about having a combined dispatch center is when that call gets completed from the CAD, all the information, the information of the caller, the location, the reporting times, when they arrived, left, things like that, all that information gets pushed down into the records management system. So technically, each agency does not have to use our records management system. That's what I'm after. I think that's the best case scenario for everyone. But technically, if there's a department that does not want to move from their vendor to eForce or whatever you guys end up choosing, that's fine. What they would be missing out on is a couple of things. One is getting that call data pushed down to them after it's done, and it just would create, I mean, that's quite honestly one of the things that I'm sure Fairfield and Teague are excited about is when they go to write their report after they get the call, they're gonna click a button and all the information is right there. Their report is halfway written for them. They don't have to re-enter, they don't have to take the time to enter the person and all their calling times and all the notes from CAD. It's just sitting in their system. So every agency that's using eForce, that would just flow down and their reports would be halfway written.
I run into Greg Smith down at Oakwood yesterday, the fire chief down there, and we were talking about centralized dispatch for Freestone County. But he was saying that, of course, they have eForce in Leon County, but they use, I believe it was Response Master, is that right?
Yes.
And so basically the information that is getting pushed down, they don't have to call a dispatcher, or they don't have to call a trooper and ask anything. The eForce software is giving them the data that they need to put over on that report that goes to Response Master. And he loved it. You know, you can call and ask him more about it, because he was just saying that it worked well together. So it made their life easier.
So yeah, my point of, thank you, Commissioner, but my point of saying that we pass that data down, we'll do that for the law enforcement guys, of course, into our system, but we can also build an interface so that it pushes it into whatever fire reporting system you're using as well. And of course, the other benefit is having that CAD data sitting in front of you. If you've got either a laptop or a tablet or even a phone in your pocket, that call information in real time is coming through and visible to the units on the fire side as well.
Yeah, Greg got his on his phone because he showed me everything that had been sent to him since they got it. You know, he could scroll through and click on it. And he said it was information. I think Leon County had a breach of information the other day, and the first thing to do was point the finger at somebody on the volunteer fire department, let some information out because of the report that they received. That wound up not being the case. It was the information that the fire departments were getting were what they needed, and they didn't see, you know, if it was a homicide or something like that, they didn't see any of the rest of the report. It was only what they needed for their reporting.
I would just like to say one thing about the phones that I have a question about. So, as far as law enforcement, well, anything. So, if you're conducting business on personal phones, the agencies would need to provide agency phones, because if you're operating on your personal phone, using all that, that's all public records if there's a criminal case or anything like that. So, that's just an additional cost if you choose to operate off the phone.
I would back that 100%. Yeah, you do not want your people doing business on personal phones. And again, hardware side, we simply don't care. We'll tell you, you tell us what device you're using, we'll help you set it up accordingly. But we don't get too involved with that side of things.
That's right.
Anyone else? Well, you'll have a few minutes to think for what other questions that you have whenever you're with him on the presentation, if you'd like to stay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. As far as the central dispatch, we will be talking to Teague and Wortham, their mayors and council people, and see if they want to participate. And then we will try to finalize a budget and see where we are. But we're hoping that will save everybody money by it being centralized. All right, anything else on the centralized dispatch? Anything on communications with the centralized dispatch?
I think one thing we need to note is I know the Fire Association met last week and they picked members to be on the dispatch board. But we need to make sure that we reach out to the cities,
Yeah.
city police,
Yes.
both EMSs now.
To see. We know who's gonna be on your
They're
list.
sending us their recommendations, the fire departments.
Yeah, I have them right here.
You have a
It's not
list?
signed, but I have them right here.
I mean, that's
Who was-
y'all's recommendation.
These are our 6 plus our 1 alternate of who we voted that's gonna be filling those
So
7
ones
positions.
y'all recommended to be on the board?
Yes.
Okay.
but we need to get
But
the cities.
technically, we voted for those to be on the board, so.
When you get the cities and
After court, I'll make a copy for all of y'all. Whenever we can set a meeting then with Teague and Wortham, if some representative from the city would like to come, that would be good, and we'll have a meeting, maybe with Teague, Wortham, and Fairfield at the same time. That would be okay with y'all. All right. Anything else? All right. If not, we'll go to item number 2, which is bidding out the dispatch building. We have just received the packet from the architect. We have sent it to CommCourt for them to review as far as the technical part, to be sure everything is fine there. And I have to go to a meeting tomorrow at CommCourt, and hopefully we'll get an answer from them tomorrow. So do we want to go ahead and approve going out for bids as soon as we get the okay from the CommCourt people, 911 people?
Make the motion.
No.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, aye? Motion carried. Any comments? We will have a presentation after the meeting is closed.
there are several activities going on this weekend. Streetman, y'all are having y'all's fish fry,
That's correct.
at what time?
Officially starts at 5, everybody shows up at 4.
5 until the food's gone,
So
correct?
it's gone, be first in line.
Then y'all have an activity at the lake, your community care.
Yeah, there's a community care club garage sale Saturday from 8 to 2. It's, our whole fire station is packed full of garage sale stuff, a lot of really good stuff.
Good stuff.
So it's this Saturday, 8 to 2.
Oakwood Fire Department's fish fry is this Saturday, starting at 11 o'clock, Saturday morning.
Go Texas barbecue, fresh off the fairgrounds, Friday, Saturday.
Saturday, Friday and Saturday, something.
You judge the chicken?
I ain't judging anything. I've done that. No chicken.
No chicken?
Chicken, that's sucker
I
bad.
refuse. Been there.
All right. Any comments from commissioner court members? Any more?
Make a motion